weather this fall. Jeez.
I know.
So at least I'm seeing your face, baby.
Yeah, I don't know why. Well, I guess I know why, but anyway. Okay. Cool. We got 25 people on already. Awesome. All right. So tell us. Oh, my stupid space bar doesn't work. Where I gotta get a new laptop.
Where you're from?
Well, my space bar doesn't work.
I can text.
There we go. Tell us where you're from. I got that done.
All right.
I don't know why you can't screen share, but maybe now it'll work.
I told people. Can everyone hear us now?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Hi, everyone. I told people, some of the people that walk with me here, I was like, if I forget anything, you got to get in the chat and prompt.
I'm sure they will. All right. Let me do a brief intro, then we'll roll right in. You can introduce yourself and we'll get into your topic.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is Webinars with Wendy. I am actually just outside of Chicago, having been a speaker at the PHCP, the Professional Hoof Care Practitioners semi-annual meeting, and it was a blast. I got to meet some really amazing people, and it was really exciting. But I am broadcasting from a hotel room. I hope that the sound and everything holds. If not, Laura Plunkett is in charge of handling the rest of the meeting, and I made her the grand poobah so she can do it.
I can do it.
Welcome, Laura. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. I am been very excited. You're going to feel that. Uh-oh.
I just made you big.
Oh, my gosh, Wendy. You left me.
I know. I'm down here in the corner. I'm in my little box. But I figured it's like, you're the speaker. You're the one we're here to see.
All right. Okay. Awesome.
All right. So just give everybody a little bit of your background, because there may be people that don't know you.
Okay. So this is what I really want to say. I wanted a horse or a pony since I was 3 years old. I never got one, but every Christmas, every birthday, what do you want? That's all I wanted. I met my husband when I was 18. Every birthday, every Christmas, what do you want? A pony. And I know that people listening can relate to that. In my life, due to circumstances, I didn't have the time or the money until I was 58. And when I got Spirit, I was so primed to have a friend that was a horse that I apologize in advance for the childlike way in which I love my horse. I think we all have that in us. But sometimes my enthusiasm just gets really crazy because it is so fun to finally be living this dream. I also have loved animals my whole life, and that led me over time to become an animal communicator. So let's see. So I truly believe that everyone can do it. I wish we learned it in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. But I did think that animal communicators were scammers. That's what I was taught. And so I understand skeptics. I love skeptics, but I am completely converted at this point because of the experiences that I have had. I've been specializing in horses. I do talk to all different kinds of animals. And one of the things that is remarkable for me in starting to learn about all the capabilities of being able to communicate with animals is that at this point in my life, the majority of my practice is in other parts of the country or in other countries. And all I have is a photograph and a person on the phone or on Zoom who knows they're not supposed to tell me anything until I start giving them information about their animals so my thinking mind doesn't get in the way. So that's a little bit of my background, both the combination of absolutely loving horses and then having the privilege of talking to horses. I would say I've talked to thousands by now. And it led us to today because I will say that when my clients ask their animals through me, what do you want to do? You know, it might be a performance horse. It might be a retired horse. It could be a pony or a foal. What would you like to do with me? So much of the time, the images I get in my head are of this hand walking. And so Wendy and I have done, this is our 10th webinar.
Is it really? Wow.
10th. And I said to Wendy, I think we should talk about hand walking. And I am here tonight just to advocate for it because I can be a voice for the animals that have told me it's vitally important.
So describe to us when you talk about hand walking, describe to us what you're talking, what are they saying? What are you talking about?
Okay. So for myself, it's hiking in the woods. It's up and down hills. It's all weather. It's usually like 3.5 to 4 miles a day. But what horses are talking about is very varied. So it can be you finish your ride and you take all the tack off and you just walk along the fence lines calmly, quietly. Some horses desperately want to be hand walked before they're ridden. It could be that you don't have enough time and you're going to take your horse out for 20 minutes. We're going to get into some of the things you can do with a horse and the advantages of hand walking. But generally, I would say there's almost no limit except for the fact that you're willing to quiet your mind, maybe take off the performance part of any pressure you put on yourself. Be as still as you can, be as observant as you can, and then walk with your horse.
So, okay. So it doesn't matter where in your routine you do this. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter how long you go. I mean, give us some more details here.
Well, let me talk about the advantages, if that's okay, because that's going to show you there's a range. Obviously, there's so much more you can do if you're going places that are very varied or in nature. But I would say I wouldn't want that to stop people from the benefits of just getting into a rhythmic connection with your horse where you're both walking. Let me get into some of the advantages and then we can talk about length and sort of strategy. Hand walking is a chance to get to know your horse without the mind clutter or the high expectations. It's a time where you can have heightened observational skills. You're not thinking, where are my feet in the stirrups? Or, am I going to get bucked off? You have time where your feet are on the ground. And if you don't have an aggressive horse next to you, you have a chance to just observe whatever your horse is bringing to this walk. And actually what you're bringing to the walk. It builds awareness. And it calms your nervous system. Wendy, you and I have talked a lot about Sharon. I know you've done a ton of webinars with Sharon Wilsey, who talks about getting to zero and calming the nervous system. Your pads calm the nervous system naturally. Dr. Stephen Peters talks about that yellow. And what we're talking about with all of this is you're trying to get into a walking rhythm with your horse where they are not, Stephen would call it the green, where they're not bored, dull, inattentive, but they're also not with their head up and flighty and in the red zone. So that's the yellow zone is interested and capable to take in information and learn, right?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Stephen's colors because he didn't have colors when I met him.
Okay. And then, but that cocktail of where is the level of cortisol and where, how worked up is a horse. You're trying to get yourself and your horse into a calm, natural state of just taking a walk together. Right. I was just watching something else. So you've got the rhythm, you've got nature, hopefully you've got some quiet. And then I don't know if you already know this, Wendy, but when you're walking, it turns out that your eyes move laterally. And that lateral eye movement, for those of you who have heard of eye movement desensitization, EMDR. Well, I was just watching something that said the act of walking gently stimulates your eyes to do this. And so going forward, we are allowing our nervous system to calm down. So for all those reasons, I'm getting into some of the science of it, but it's just simple. You know how you feel when you go and you take a walk in the woods for a few minutes, even if it's 5 minutes. It's a chance to lower the speed of your thoughts. Physical benefits. And so I would say, one of the striking things about watching the longer walking, because you asked me how long to walk. It's interesting to see how I started out 2.5 years ago when Spirit arrived here on Martha's Vineyard. I had backaches. I had a little bit of a rhythm thing with my heart. And I had, I would say, just not a lot of stamina. And how working hand walking into my life, hiking with my horse, both of us have ended up, we're out in all weather. Our legs are strong. Our backs are strong. When people come to do chiropractic on Spirit or to do body work, it's like, wow, she has as good a top line as some of my performance horses. Now, I would say that's because she walks in a relaxed manner with her head down. She's walking in a beautiful, relaxed state, and we're doing some hills. It hardens the hooves. It manages weight, both for me and her. Balance when you're walking over all terrain is improved for both of us. I would definitely say that we are more confident and resilient than we were when we started. And for older horses, going back to the animal communication, and a lot of times this will come up with horses that are in stalls and in the later part of their life, that the more the owner naturally hand walks them, it eases the arthritic feeling, it reduces the stocking up, and then it improves the riding experience, right? Because, it's if you just take the horse out of the stall, you put them on cross ties, you tack them up, and you go to the mounting block and get on. It's so different than if you've even given them 10 or 15 minutes to get the synovial fluid moving in their joints and let them loosen up, let them drop their head, let them move around, and then go ahead and bring them to the mounting block. Should I keep going? These are all advantages. I
think we should break some of these down a little bit, right?
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about, since you're an animal communicator, is horses have been with people for a very long time, for thousands of years. Okay. And if we go back, because they were so much a part of our life, like also as carrying burdens, dragging carts, I mean, is there not some kind of, I don't want to call it historical, that's not the right word, but is that not some kind of a connection that's actually been there for thousands of years? This idea
of
walking, because, like we didn't always ride all the horses that we had, right?
Right.
So like when you think about, I guess when I think about like the pioneers that went across the United States, I mean, they were pulling wagons and things, but people were walking. Everybody was traveling like as a herd.
Right.
So how far back, or how primitive, not in a weak way, but primal maybe is the better word. How primal is this?
Well, I would ask everybody listening. I mean, who doesn't want to be connected and stand there next to their horse? I talk to owners who honestly say their happiest times are when they're grooming them, when they're taking them out to graze, when the pressure's off.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea of walking with them, right? Because that's what we're talking about. Is like, I mean, do you think that there's any connection to our history with horses?
Well, absolutely. I would imagine that anybody who was spending time with horses realizes, right? You just talked about they're pulling a cart and they've got someone walking next to them, right? There's that recognition that these animals are working hard for us, and there's a time to be on them, but there's also a time to be off them. So yes.
That's what I think, are we not in some way recreating something that we did in the past, I guess is kind of the way I'm trying to put it.
Yeah, and I absolutely. I think in this country too, we're going through a huge change or at least I could say on the East Coast, partially because of you, that there's a lot more thought about connection, partnership. What do we really want from a relationship? And I think hand walking is part of that. Letting horses go out in herds is coming back into vogue. You know, all of those things that I would say, yeah, they used to, you know, horses. I was just in Michigan, they couldn't believe we turned horses out without each other. All those horses I saw were out in herds. So I do think, actually, I'm just saying, I'm agreeing with you that I think this is a part of what is innate in people. And if this webinar gives people permission to feel that primal feeling, like, you know what, I do not really feel like riding today. I'm tired. My horse seems anxious. What I really want is to walk my horse like a dog. You know, I think that's in there.
So somebody's asking, they're saying, you know, our walks are very distracted by the calling of the grass. My horse just wants to stop and graze.
Yes. So this is one of the advantages. Actually, that's one of the training opportunities. And I wrote down a ton of them, but let's go right to grass. So I personally am looking for a horse that in our partnership, there are times where my horse is going to go along with what I want. And then there's going to be times where I say, yeah, in this case, go ahead and eat grass, right? If I hike for an hour and a half, I'm not expecting that my horse isn't going to want food. Especially having been a wild horse and, you know, not believing that I'm asking her to walk past a puddle. So for grass, what I've done is I teach her the two words, up and down. And so there are times when we can eat and there are times when we can't eat. And so I kiss 3 times, I say up, and then I get going. I do the Sharon Wilsey, you know, the 3 buttons, the scoop, if anyone wants to look that up. But we go. And then she knows that when she hears the word down, she drops her head. And that's the way we solve that.
So also a strategy be to start that in a less grassy area where you could then train those terms.
It gets a lot easier in the winter.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, there are some horses that are so grass focused. They're either, you know, been on dry lots or whatever, that can get very distracting.
Yeah. And one of the things is impulsion, right? So when you're walking anywhere, just like riding, you want to have a goal, you know where you're going, and you're going to stride purposefully toward that. And the horse is going to respect that. So if you think of how, going back, like you said in history, think about how herds move together, right? There's a driver and they're going. So that's another thing I say is that, you know, with my horse, since I want her to be a riding horse, I do not haul her around by her head. So if we're walking and she starts to look for grass, and of course I'm paying attention because I don't have my phone on and I'm not thinking about other things, and I see that tuft of grass coming up and I see her starting to go, and I have my hands loosely, palms down on the lead rope. But if she starts to dive, I close my hands so it's too short for her to actually get it. And then I signal to her hind end. You know what I mean? I sort of either give her hip a look or I swing the rope in that direction and off we go. I mean, we don't have to do that anymore, but that's how we did it. So that's a little more of strategy with grass.
Yeah, because I think, you know, that's one of the things that a lot of horses that aren't used to working with people, you know, there's the people aren't used to working with horses, but there's horses that aren't used to working with people.
And I had an untouched Mustang, so I can speak to that, right? This isn't like someone gave me a horse that knew how to walk on a lead or knew how to leave grass alone. She's as food worried as any horse you're going to get. But what I would say is you start where your horse is and work on it, because everyone wants a horse that's easy to walk, right? And so that's the priority, is like, instead of getting on a horse that's hard to walk, that doesn't listen to your smallest cues, let's do that on the ground where there's much less risk. Let's work out all those communication issues and then get on.
So tell us how you got started with Spirit, because I think that might help a lot of people if they understand kind of what your initial process was.
Spirit came to me without ever having been touched before. And she self-loaded onto a trailer only because the night before they were going to drive her onto a trailer with brooms and pitchforks from the herd she was in Pennsylvania. I got quiet in my mind up here in Massachusetts, and I said, this is where you're coming to. You're going to have a vet, and you're going to get your feet done, and you're going to have help training, and you're going to have a mom, and you're going to have a life together where we do things, but you have to get on the trailer. And so they went out in the middle of the night with the driving rain, thinking they were going to have to get her to load into this big truck and drive her overnight. And she was at the gate where they had backed the trailer to. They opened the trailer, she self-loaded. So she was ready to go in that sense, but she was terrified of people. So we did go to, she shipped up to Massachusetts. We went to a trainer where I moved out there for 6 weeks, and he did teach her to lead, and then helped me learn what he had done with her. We worked together each day. So that the background was that by the time she came to me, she would lead, but she was terrified, and she was only doing it because she would stay with me until, out of kind of fear of having to run around a round pen if she didn't stay with me. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but what we did, the need became, I need a way to help this horse trust me, to find a way to communicate body language wise and work together and become partners. And there is no way she's ready for riding, but she's used to, in her natural state, she traveled 13, 14 miles a day. That's what wild horses do. And so I thought, I can't just leave her in a field and do little things with her during the day. And so we got moving.
So how did you start the walking? Like what did you do in the beginning? Because you just told me she was a frightened horse that, was basically scared of people and had been chased around in a round pen. And so what did you do?
So she, as you've met Rebecca, she's up at a farm where there were at that point there was a mule and a horse. And we would take those two horses. Rebecca would lead them, and then I would lead Spirit behind. And we, even just getting from the barn to the pasture is a third of a mile on a dirt road. So, sometimes she would hear a car and just take off, and I would let go. But we had the herd with us, and she'd run a couple of feet up, and she'd look back like, what do I do? And I'd go get her again. But for the most part, because we had the other two horses with us, she was happy to tuck in and follow along. And that was how we started. And then what did I do? I started
So wait, I want to stop you right there then, because basically you started in a herd.
Yes.
And so, if people are having trouble with their horse getting started, I'm trying to think of what are the scenarios someone with a horse that wants to eat grass instead of go for a walk. If there was a buddy that would like to go for a walk instead of eat grass, or was less grass fixated, that would be a good way to get started.
Absolutely. Okay. Especially if you have a spooky horse.
Yeah, because, that's the thing is some people don't want to walk their horses because they're afraid they're going to get jumped on, or it's going to bolt, or it's going to take off and run into traffic, or, there's a lot of reasons why people are concerned. And I think one of the things that we're looking at is that, horses need movement. And while, they might be turned out in a field, it doesn't necessarily mean they're moving a lot. And they're certainly not moving necessarily in a herd. And so it sounds to me like your strategy, one of the things it sounds to me like is that you realize, wow, I have to lead this horse over to the barn, and even that's difficult. So if I go with other horses and she can follow along, being a Mustang, used to being a herd, that's good strategy. The other thing you've said, which I think people have to be very careful of, is you let go. And you don't necessarily let go in an environment that's unsafe or not with others, because they might go back to the barn or take off down the road or whatever. So we have to think about while I think that's probably a really good thing, you have to think about your environment that you're in it to get a horse started. Say you're working with a spooky horse, or a horse that's a pullback horse, or a horse that's, had a bad experience with people or doesn't want to be with people. These are all things that need to be considered.
Absolutely. And everyone's going to know their horse. So I knew at that point we had all three of the herd out somewhere, and a car comes, and I realized almost she's gone. That was my horse, because that's not she's the only horse that I've had this experience with, and I've been with horses my whole life. So this is not a universal, but what I'm saying is that I knew my environment, which is this is a back roads, dirt road. She only runs tiny way, but she will not separate from the herd. So that's very different than anyone listening who has taken their horse out by themselves and they're now a quarter mile away from the barn. And if that horse gets scared, it's going to run home. Well, then that doesn't make sense, right? Then you could start by just walking in the paddock and put some enrichment in the paddock, put things they've never seen before, do patterns they haven't experienced. You can get those dendrites going. You can be teaching your horse stuff in any environment. But I would say absolutely you have to take it at your own pace. But I want to talk about the safety, because when I talk to horses and their owners, think about how common it is that people say my horse is spooky, right?
Yeah.
And the horse says to me, well, I want to learn about these things without my rider on my back, because I'm afraid they're going to get hurt. That comes up over and over and over again. In some ways, they work themselves up worse. You know how they could say, oh no, that's something. And then what do I do about my rider? And it adds an added level of freak out. And then not only that, but the rider's heart rate is going up because the horse has now planted, right? And you can already feel the horse's anxiety about whatever it is going up. And so horses are like, can't I see that boulder when you're calm on the ground next to me? And what I would definitely say that you really have to think about, because I let a lot of different people walk my horse with me, because I want her to experience beginners and experienced people and all of that, right? I don't want a horse that only does these things for me. If you think that there's something your horse is nervous about, you want to be, how does it go? You want to be closest to it, so that if the horse spooks, it spooks away from you.
Closest to the object, you mean?
So
not closest to the horse.
Closest to the object.
Thank you. Okay, just clarifying that.
Right? So if the car's coming down the road, you want to be with your horse on the verge, you on the side of the road, and the car going by. So it can move away from the car without hurting you, right?
I think this is a really good point, that the horses, we tend to think that we have to push the horse into an environment where it has to confront things, instead of reassuring the horse that we're going to protect them.
Right.
And I think that, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people try to push a horse into a situation. And the other thing they do is straight on. So if you come at it straight on, the horse's only choice is to spin, right? Because they can't just go forward because they're confronted into whatever it is.
That's right. And so I lost my train of thought. Sorry. That's what it was. You can attack things. So we're walking past a tractor and Spirit gets the big nose and the big eyes and she makes a snort. And I go, check this out. And I go and I kick it. And I step at it. And she's looking at me and I'm like, look, this is great, right? Everything's fine. I'm fine. I take a deep breath. All the body language of like, I cock my hip, I take a deep breath, I say, right? And then I stand there, and you want to learn about your own horse and how they react. But I know for me, I've now attacked the tractor, which you can't do from the saddle, just saying. And now Spirit will get curious, and then she'll smell it. Then I bang on it. I make sure it makes noise. I do stuff, not to take her to the point of fear, but just to keep it interesting, just to expose her to things. So, when you think about it, I want my horse to be a riding horse. She has never had, she's, she wasn't ready at the time, but now she's already been over bridges and tons of bridges, going slowly, letting her look at things, breathing, terrified at the beginning, doesn't think about it now. She can squeeze between cars, trucks can rumble by, plastic bags can fly, hoses can be down there, down fencing, deer, chickens, cows, sheep, all that stuff, right? Thunder and wind, bicycles, branches getting stuck in her tail, all kinds of water stuff, leaf blowers, construction sites. Do you know what I mean? And so if you've already seen them, I'm not saying that I wouldn't still be aware that it would be an added challenge once someone's on her back. But she has been able to move around, dance a little bit without any ramification, no danger to me, right? And then to relax in the face of these things.
Yeah, I think that, how do I put this? I think we're in such a hurry to get on their backs that we're not thinking about their perspective and relationship to us.
Yeah.
And, so many people, how do I put this? A lot of people don't have a good enough command over their own emotional reactions, that the horse feeds on the emotional reactions, which is why when you see a confident rider on a horse, it's supposed to be spooky or whatever. It's not, because it is perceiving that of the rider. But by being on the ground, you're not, how do I put this? You're not feeling so much at risk because you're closer to the earth. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And your feet are grounded. And this is where, people say that when you're in the saddle, to push your horse over there, or push. And I don't think people realize that it is impossible. I'm talking impossible from a physics perspective to push the horse when you are in the saddle, because your feet are not on the ground.
And also from an animal communication point of view, if you just think, what's the horse thinking in that moment, right? They're like, Mom, I'm scared, right? And you're saying, I don't care, get going. But
you can't even do that. You can't really, because your feet are not on the ground. Whereas if you're on the ground and your feet are on the ground, you are grounded.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is you've now lost their faith in you a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that's what I hear from horses, is like, they don't understand me. It's not getting better. I'm now afraid to be ridden because I don't have a good way to meet things I'm afraid of. Mom doesn't understand me. I'm going to get spurs in, or if I get scared.
So here's my perspective on that. And I don't know if you've ever talked to horses about this, but I truly don't think that horses associate the pain with us. They associate the pain with the thing that they're worried about and that they can't really see well because we don't let them. And so they associate the pain. Take a corner, for instance. Your horse won't go into the corner. What do? You try to drive them in the corner. And now it's the corner that's bitten them, not the person on their back. That's my perspective. They don't associate it with us as much as the thing that they are worried about that we are trying to force them into. Does that make sense?
It does. And I would say they're definitely worried about that thing. But what has struck me over all these years is horses' hearts are easily hurt and broken. They, from the earliest age, if they've had good handlers in the beginning, even if they've had abuse or ended up in a rescue, had periods of being let down by someone, if ever in their earlier life they had a rewarding relationship with a person, what I hear from them, and remember, this could just be a horse I know nothing about. Yeah. And I've just seen and corroborated that this is the history. So I'm not saying I'm making this up. I'm actually like, this is so textbook though. I've been in there a lot where I see what the breeding place was like and the person says yes. And then I see this abusive situation. The person says, that is the guy, that is what happened. And then the horse is still telling me, I just want this owner to love and trust me and let me figure these things out. And when we find that our horse is afraid, and we, instead of saying, I see that you're afraid, I'm going to help you get over the fear. We're going to take the time it takes. I'm not going to make you face it kind of in what they would say alone, because you're on their back. You're not like between, like we talked about, between the thing and it. All I can say is I feel like it hurts their heart.
So are you saying the Black Beauty book is right?
What part of it? I forget.
All of it, you know, like came from a great place, then wound up in a bad situation, finally got a good home, was still a good horse.
Yes, yes. They're so resilient. They're so resilient.
And so those early years are super important.
And I want to say something. I truly believe horses want to learn to spook in place. So my horse could not have been.
Wait, why don't they just learn not to spook?
Yeah, they want to not spook at all. But I guess what I'm saying is,
okay, just checking.
Yeah. It's a misconception, like, oh, she's so flighty, right? She's driving me crazy. She's just jumpy. She's this or that. When I talk to the horse, and certainly in my horse's case, the hand walking, the ability to surmount obstacles, let's say. Let me give you one example. So Spirit, being wild in the hills of Nevada, did not want me, let's say, above her, right? Because she's prey at that point, and she, you know, mountain lions and whatever. We're walking, and I step over a rock that makes me higher than her, and she shoots away, right? So she, let's say I'm on a rock, and all of a sudden she's next to me, and then you have to remember, she's like a deer. She is incredibly athletic. So all of a sudden she has shot herself like 90 degrees, right? She's just standing there looking at me scared. Well, that's awesome, because I stand there and I go, hi, right? She didn't hurt me. My heart rate didn't have to go up. Nothing's wrong. I say to her, I'm up here. You're okay. I wait until she licks and chews, right? She relaxes. She might lick and chew. She might sniff me a little bit. I reach my hand out. I'm like, I'm just up here, right? Then we go on. Her nervous system and mine, you know, we're walking. We got the eye movement, whatever. We're in nature. I'm listening to the birds. I'm singing her a song. And then I get to the next rock and I get up high, right? Again, maybe higher. Now I realize we've got a hole in her training. We do it again. But what the point is that now she just, I can get up on a fence above her and lower myself down onto her, and she stands there. The whole outcome of all of this is that she finally feels like even if she is nervous, she doesn't need to go anywhere or do anything. She's got practice facing her fears to the point where she stands still. And then, yes, there are still times where I would say she'll go like that. Like, I would call that like a spook in place. She's concerned, but she didn't have to go anywhere. And then, yes, horses more than anything are hoping to one day be so confident and resilient that they just don't even have to do that.
Yeah. I refer to that as a startle.
Yeah.
Because they're not actually moving their feet. But, you know, it's, you know, people startle all the time. I would think it would be really interesting. Like, I cannot go to a movie, never sit next to me in a movie that's a spooky or a scary movie, because like a loud noise happens and I hit the person next to me. So you never want, I don't go to them anymore, but people have learned never to sit. So I have a high startle reflex. I don't know the theater, but I do startle. And a startle is fine because it just, you know, the nervous system just whacks up. But I think that's what you're talking about, is that it goes from having to depart, to leave, to get out of the scene, to just like going, oh, you know, because it does, it's sudden and unexpected. And I think that's the piece.
Yeah. And I would say,
but the reaction, they don't have to escalate the reaction, right?
Right. And now also, when I bring our yellow raincoat that she hasn't seen before, which would have been a big deal approaching her in the field, you know, with a yellow raincoat on. We're now at a point, because of all this hand walking, I have, at some point I'll go through my list of things you can do with your horse, but, you know, I have a raincoat on. I put it, at first I'm doing this with it to make it make a noise as we're walking. And if she needs to take a little space from it as I keep walking, I keep acting normal. She's doing a little dance. She's looking at it. She's snorting. Eventually she's so bored. Then I'm doing my zipper, right? Then we're walking. Then I take it off. I put it on her. So now, because this learning hasn't been uncomfortable for her, it's never gotten to the point of her being wrong or bad or us having to call on each other or, you know, have a scene or anything. Now, when there's something new, she goes, oh, mom, right? So now it's like a green vest I'm putting on her. Or the other day I went up and I thought, I wonder if there's anything in this whole pasture that I could put on her and scare her. Not that I don't mean it in a mean way, but, you know, like, how's she doing? So I pick up a big orange cone. I put it on her back. I knock it off. She does her characteristic sigh, like, there's mom. So I think you end up building a trust that no matter what I do now, she's like, we're going to be okay.
And you know, one of the things I think that's also really important is to realize that there are times when we do make mistakes and we break that trust for whatever reason. But if you have built, it's like money in the bank, right? If you have built enough trust and something happens, and you know what? There's always going to be something that happens. It's life. But there's enough money in the bank that, yeah, you broke that trust, but they can recover from that. It's not the end of the world. And I think that, you know, one of the things I think is really important for us to realize that we can't build a perfect world. We can't make a perfect environment. The harder we try to make it perfect, the more imperfect we actually make it. But that if we have money in the bank, we might have to make a withdrawal, but we didn't drain the account.
100%. I love the way you put that. Horses have big hearts, right? 5 times the size of ours or something. And I mean it. They're so forgiving too.
Well, they don't, you know, they don't, and that's where their brain is different than ours. You know, I'll tell you, teaching a riding clinic versus doing a surefoot clinic is so, on an energy output level, is so completely different. That teaching riding is a drain. It's a way more energy because people do things like, how am I going to remember? Oh no, I didn't, you know, it's like, be in the moment. Whereas the horses are just so in the moment. Don't have that past future thing that gets humans in so much trouble.
So true. You know what I'm thinking, Wendy? What if I just run through the last of my, like, what I recommend doing?
I think it's a great idea.
And then we've got all these wonderful comments that I can't read, but people have been chiming in, and maybe we could answer questions and stuff like that. Does that sound good? Okay. Yeah. So I just want to say, in my experience, hand walking helps horses be, and people, their partners, happier and smarter. It avoids the boredom. It invites aliveness. You get a change of scenery. You're building dendrites. Meanwhile, don't forget, you come and go. That horse, if it's in a barn, doesn't get to see that much other than the arena unless you're getting it out of there and doing things. And if you only have 20 minutes, it's a great way to be with your horse instead of trying to rush through other things. All right, training opportunities. I try to mix creativity with undirected time. So undirected time. So I would say some of hand walking is just, let's just walk, right? Let's go walk. You can eat some grass. We'll go down by the stream. I've always wanted to look around that corner. Just walk, and nothing but being together is important. But then there's time where you might want to be creative and use it as training. And that would be, I taught Spirit, like, up, don't eat, basically, down, walk, trot, back, and come. So, you know, we have all the transitions. I don't have to pull on her head. And turning right, turning down, you know, just where my shoulders goes, where she goes. And then you can work with your horse if you have any, if you have those sensory aware horses, touch everywhere while you're walking. So you're just walking and touching, where it's not the same as they're on cross ties and they feel like they can't move their head, they can't protect themselves, and now you're doing this thing to them. I find sensory aware horses start to accept a deep scratch or touching places where they feel sensitive at a walk. Always, again, being careful for your safety, but we've gotten a lot done with that. Having the rope everywhere, having it brush against her back legs, having it go under her belly, over her back, all that stuff. Swing around my head. The end of the lead rope goes like this, hits the trees. I swing coat, my hat, my crop, especially if you have a horse that's been afraid from abuse in the past of a crop. I just carry it while we're walking. I let it drag on the ground. It's the crop, me, the horse, always. I don't have it next to the horse until they're ready for that. They get a branch caught in their trail. I sometimes carry a plastic bag, walk with the saddle on, tie things on it if your horse is ready. Now, this is not to torture them, but it helps. You could put a little something hanging off and they get used to that when they're ready for it. And then you can take two horses. So ponying one horse off the other. I do that a lot. You can ask other people to walk your horse. You go with them, but it gets your horse used to being handled by a variety of people if you have a horse who's not used to that. And it's in an outdoor calm environment where they're just walking. It's not, again, from an animal communication perspective, just remember that the barn may have certain pressures for your horse, either because of the other horses there, the trainer's there, other people are there, there's noise, there's commotion. When you're out walking with your horse, it might be easier for them then to get used to others or other things. We stand on inclines, we back up. I already said, we go over down trees, leading from both sides, leading from behind, leading from in front, being at liberty. I throw, and you have to know your horse, but I throw the rope over her shoulders. And I still expect her to stay with me. If she doesn't, I get the rope. We start again. We go back to it. I stand above her, and just a few. I know I ran through that fast, but it's just, you can think of all different things. Just think of anything that your horse is struggling with, and break it down into pieces and have fun. It's fun.
So I put a thing in the chat asking how many people that are on the call. There's 44 people on the call. I'm just curious how many are already walking with their horse. We've got Denise is walking with both of her horses. Alyssa, I have almost a year now since working with a new trainer who Laura knows. Carrie, I have two who love the walk with me together. They have learned to take turns contributing to our path. Yes. Sanda, Sparrow, and I walk. We've been doing it for almost 9 years. Janella likes your list. Question. I'm hand walking currently with both and enjoy it. So a lot of people on the call are actually already, or at least some of them are already walking. Oh, somebody just said, my horse is getting a bit more senior, losing athleticism, some creaks, etc. They're very dog savvy. The dog is fearful of strange dogs approaching. So I ride every other day on in between days, go for hand walks. And some days I work with my husband who walks the dogs. The dogs have to defend and support him. Okay. So this is interesting. So it sounds like she walks with her horses and her dogs. Dee Dee says we walk every day, love it, often the best part of our day together. Gail, yes, I walk with my horses, Mayor, also with her 32-year-old pony. Carol, I walk with her horse. Ellen always walked with a horse that I rode. He would canter to me if he got behind. How cute. So I think what I want to say is, what you've done is give people permission for something they've been doing.
Yes. Well, and I recognize a lot of these names. These are people whose horses have said, please walk with me.
Yeah. But somebody's been walking for 9 years. I think that's probably, I don't know if that's before you met them.
Well, they're quite a pair. They're unbelievable. Yeah. Sparrow is Sean does a lovely owner.
Oh, you know? Okay. You do know.
Yeah, they're great.
So I find, it's kind of interesting that I bet you there's a lot of, I'm going to call them closet walkers.
Can we talk more about walking with two horses? Do you want
Sure.
to do that? Um,
Oh, Dana. Hi, Dana.
I would say that a specific question would help about that.
We'll see if she puts a specific question in. But, you know, one of the things, like, I have to admit that I'm not a big fan of walking, but I like bike riding, and I've actually bike ridden with my horses. Okay.
See, it's fun. You
Yeah.
think something up, and yeah.
Yeah. And it's great to get them used to, like, you know, whether it's off a bicycle, you have to have good skills, and probably in Holland it's a lot more common, but, you know, off a bicycle or off a golf cart or something like that. It's really good for the horses too, to just be really comfortable with that idea.
That's right. Right. Without as much risk. Let me think what I could say about two horses. I love it. It is an opportunity where mostly I walk with Shayna, who is not mine, and Pony Spirit. And when I say Pony, I just leave her at the longest point of a very long lead. So she's safely behind. And I keep Shayna with me because Shayna, if you put her behind, her neck goes out like this. And I want to mention that there are some horses, if you're leading from the front and you look back, their posture's terrible. Their neck is out here. But when you walk at Shayna's neck, my shoulder to her neck or my shoulder to her shoulder, her head is nice like this. She's relaxed. She's coming under herself more. And so she's in a frame. And then I put Spirit behind. And then one of the things that does is it gives Spirit time where she has to come. So I do not stop. When I've got the two of them, when I just have Spirit, I leave a lot more to, oh, you like that grass? Sure, let's go over there, right? Or you want to take that driveway? It's kind of a give and take. I spend a lot of time listening to her, and I spend a lot of time saying, no, you can't eat this, or we have to go now. But when you're taking two horses, you really can't have them both going in different directions. And so it's wonderful. Like, one of the things I do around the barn with Spirit is I just sort of hold the rope at my hip, and then I do chores, so that she's got to kind of come through this doorway, and she's got to go around this gate. And, you know, that was one of the ways I got her used to everything early days. And so it's nice to have a horse that calmly realizes, okay, there are times when I just need you to do what you need to do. And then there are other times where we're going to be sort of like listening to each other.
Okay, so Dana came back and she said that curious about position, which you just described, because one of the horses is more confident and the other is not. But, you know, that is not. So one of the things that's so interesting when I take people on horseback safari to Kenya is that we're a herd and we go out, and the lead horse is the lead horse, and he marches out and he leads the pack. But all the other horses will change in position in the line during the ride. And sometimes they'll be at the front, and then they'll kind of float back, and then they might move up. And so I think when you're working with two horses, you've got to start to kind of figure out what their relationship to each other is. And, you know, like the less confident horse. So somebody says, my 27-year-old and I have been walking for 25 years.
Wow.
I just adopted a 22-year-old, and my 27-year-old does not like it to walk with us. But the 23-year-old follows us anyways. Should I only be walking with each one separately? I'm thinking that she's got a nice little herd going there.
It just really depends on, you know, honestly, a lot of this is listen to your heart. I know that sounds, but if you're feeling like you need a separate relationship with each one and you're not getting it in the current situation, then yeah, I would say find a way to take just one and have that special time and breathe together and look at things. You know, Spirit's looking to the right, I look to the right, we talk about it, I sing to her, she's in a good mood and she's walking fast, we walk fast, she's slow, I walk slow, sometimes I'm creaky, she walks slow for me, you know, all that kind of just enjoyable time. Sometimes you just want one horse to do that with, but if you want to get them both moving in concert, you know, I work both horses together in the round pen where we're at a point where they do walk, trot, called, they're both out there and they work together, and then they do inside turns, outside turns together like a little team. And so they've learned, I think that came from all this walking together.
So somebody says, I've only walked my horse as rehab, but this is interesting to think about how to do more regularly. What and when do the horses who are in work like to do walking?
Okay. I would say that universally, I think it's fair to say, if you're going to ride a horse, they would love to be walked first, hand walked. You could put the saddle on, get them groomed up, it doesn't matter, or do it before you do any of that. But if you can allow them, think about it, especially if they've been in a stall. But even horses talk to me about how they don't move around that much. They wish they did, but just like people, they don't move that much out in the pasture, some of them. They just sort of stand around, unless you're like Wendy's horses that have a track system. So I would say before riding I don't think I could find a horse that would say, no, I'd rather them just get on. And then, but it could be a short one. And then the other time is when people feel stressed. So horses say so often, she runs in, she feels like we need a training ride. She's tacking me really fast. She jumps on. We do this 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever is her routine. She gets off me and it's like, why couldn't we have just had a relaxed, if she only had 40 minutes, how come we couldn't have done something like, fun, like obstacles or wander around, or just had time together that would have made her enjoy me and me enjoy her.
And there is something really strongly to be said for like a 20-minute walk before you ride your horse, like warming up the body, warming up the fascial system, warming up the ligaments, tendons. Certainly for people, I talk about this a lot with people with Feldenkrais, is that you start out walking and you're really kind of a bit stiff and cold, right? And it takes a little while and you're like, oh, I got to go for that walk. And then you get walking and after a little while, it's not so bad. And then pretty soon, wow, that's great. And that's because you're warming up the ligament fascial tendons system that starts, that it's kind of like cold taffy, and you've got to start getting some heat into the system to warm it up so that it's more efficient. And so that walking can be really beneficial in that regard.
Yeah. I like what Shonda just said about long lining and hand work, that a lot of times that's a nice way, be behind your horse and start moving in those directions. But also, Wendy, I just do want to emphasize too that with all that I'm saying about walking, horses love the honor of carrying their people, right? We have a strong history of walking next to our horses historically, but we also have them under us, ever since the beginning of this country. And so horses really want to be successful, and they can be more successful if they had a hand walk, like you said, before the ride. They're loose, they're warmed up, they can please you better. And that's what they want to do.
So Dana says it's been really helpful to tell her horse what the plan is, where we're going, returning to his stall, etc. It's been magic for us and completely relaxed us both. I think people don't realize how that we are projecting that out there for them, right? Some horses you have to be super careful. Thoroughbreds you have to be really careful, because if you project too far out, they're already doing it before you ever wanted it. So
I teach. I was just teaching at Misty today, an unmounted class, and we were about to go out into the herd and do some haltering and leading training, but it wasn't going to be a riding class. And so we told that herd ahead of time by looking at them, opening our hearts to them. There was like 10 people, right? Going out back into a herd that was at Liberty. And I just had them, I said, picture what's about to happen. Kind of just put a video in your head and send it out to them. And it's amazing how differently the horses then respond. They don't feel like they have to do anything. They stand there and they put their head down as people fumble and learn and do. And there's just no anxiety because they know they're not going anywhere.
Somebody's asking, do horses prefer the same routine each day or variety?
Okay. In my experience, horses care very much that they get food the same way every day at the same time as much as possible. that water is always available, same place. They don't like a lot of change with their needs. But in terms of the activities, same thing. If you have an anxious horse, it's really nice to kind of put them on the same cross tie if you're going to every day to approach the mountain walk the same way. Same thing with hand walking. You would maybe do something to cue them. This is just going to be a hand walk, right? So you use a certain halter for that, as opposed to when you're getting them ready to ride. Anything you can do to calm them down and know what's coming next. But if you've got a been there, done that shutdown horse, then the more you can be different and creative and break them out of patterns and get their attention aside from food and drink and herd, then I would say that's really beneficial. Does that make sense?
So I think you have to really judge the individual. Some horses are really big on variety. They're really quick-minded ones, and then the other ones that need reassurance. And I think that you have to really kind of judge that individual in that regard. Cool. Do you want to read your poem?
Oh, well, I want to say something about pads first.
Okay.
Wendy, I continue. What happens is I'm doing a session with a horse. I'm sitting here in Massachusetts. I'm on Zoom with someone or I'm on the phone and I have the photo and I'm telling them about their horse and I do a body scan and they're sore. And I start to say, do you need a vet? And I'm looking in my head. Do you need acupuncture? Would chiropractic help? Would medicine help? And I cannot tell you how often the answer is pads.
The Sherpa pads.
Sherpa pads. That it continues to happen. That even for horses that haven't seen it, so don't ask me how that happens. I'm putting it in my head, but I know how it happens. I'm saying, would putting a horse on this squeegee stuff so that they can move their fascia, would that be helpful? And it's a yes so much of the time. And some of those other things are yeses too, but not with the same regularity as the pad. So I just want to add that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of getting out in the ethers, the equine ethers that they're spreading.
They're really wonderful. I just had to add that in. So is there anything else or should I read my poem?
I think read your poem.
Okay. Can you still see me even though I'm not?
Yeah.
I'm finding it. So I do live on Martha's Vineyard, and a famous author said, come put something in the paper and said, come for a little chance to do some creative writing. And so I went to, here it is, sorry. So I went and sat on the porch of the library, and this was a 15-minute prompt that we were given, and I wrote this, and then I shared it with Wendy, and she's inviting me to read it to you. And the prompt was, write about a miscommunication that became a communication. So here it is. It's about me and spirit walking. She stops. I don't. My steps break our synchrony. The stretched lead rope hurts her face, the tender skin behind her ears. I stop and look back, turning with heightened awareness. She is planted, eyes left, one ear cocked left, one on me, head tilted. Good grass. I nod, a quick acknowledgement. I see. You, it, your desire. Her eyes and ears are all now trained on me. I point to the green tufts, my eyes showing her I see. And then a tail switch, my hand waving behind my butt. Leave it in wild horse speak. Her head raises several inches. Her eyes and her bearing says, I'm 1,000 pounds, you small mom. My chin dips instinctively. I point to our goal, the open road. I wait, tension in the rope that joins us. And then she blinks, drops her head, gives a long sigh, humoring me. She steps forward and takes her place at my shoulder. We walk.
Great. Well, thank you, Laura, for joining us and talking about walking with horses.
I loved every minute of it. Thank you, Wendy, for being willing to do this topic with me.
Yeah, no, I think the bottom line is it's a great way to really get in sync with your horse and really, form that bond and partnership. So it's fabulous.
All right. Thank you. And will I be able to read the chat after? So for people that wrote stuff, I can also.
I don't know.
Okay.
But we'll find out.
We will know soon. All right. If I'm able to read the chat, I will respond if we didn't already.
All right.
All right.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.